Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live stream. I'm Kim, your host from IFMA. We're glad you've joined us where we will be discussing the workspace digital transformation and best practices for a distributed workforce. Does the term hybrid come up in your conversations? If so, you've come to the right place. While we wait for everyone to join us in the live stream, let's get to know each other. Be sure to tell us where you're coming in from and say hello. As you do that, here's some information about our format in our webinar. Our panelists have prepared a discussion with opportunities for you to participate along the way with any questions that come up. We want your questions, so don't be shy. Be sure to leave them in the chat box and we will get to them as time allows. So we do need a couple of things from you. First of all, please like the video that you're watching now. This helps us reach more FMs like you who can gain insight from this kind of great content. And again, please be sure to drop your questions in the chat box as well as tell us where you're tuning in from. So with all that, I will turn it over to John to kick off today's discussion.
Thank you very much, Kim. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is John Wang. I am CEO of IDEA, and I'm very happy today to spend the next hour with you to talk about what we see happening in the workspace as we apply technology to digitally transform it to support a distributed workforce. And as Kim said, a flexible workforce. I'm extremely happy to be joined by two experts. I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute. First, I would like to just briefly talk about my background if you are not familiar with IDEA. So we're a company that focuses on applying IoT technology to help businesses transform their physical space. And one of the things that we do is providing room scheduling panels. And we have a great story about applying these devices with Florida Power and Light as the end user. And I'm very happy to be joined by Kiran. I will let Kiran Kumar Chikula, I'll let him introduce himself just very briefly. Kiran.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kiran Kumar Chikula, and I work as a project manager for CBRE. For the past 5 years, I have been working for Florida Power and Light Company, managing the corporate real estate team for space management and also using IoT technologies for space management. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiran. And next, we also have Felipe from Newmark. Please go ahead, Felipe.
Yeah, my name is Felipe Waterwall. I'm from Newmark. I've been working with integrated work management systems for 20 years now. And I'm the technology manager and the tech lead for the project.
Thank you, Felipe. And Felipe is actually joining us from a cruise ship, as he just told us today. So I'm sure he has exciting stories to tell. So I'll get started with my first part. So I plan to spend the next 20 minutes or so to talk to you a little bit about what we see happening in the workplace with regard to managing the flexible space using technology. So as I mentioned, IDEA, we're a company that provides IoT platform devices that help businesses put some order to this flexible workplace that's just emerging after the pandemic. And to this day, as a company profile, we have about close to 1 million devices deployed in the field, helping multiple organizations managing their spaces. We're in the business for over 20 years, and we have thousands of customers spread throughout the world when we service them with our offices in Asia and also in North America. And just let me just dive right into some of the use cases that we see people are applying technology to solve with regard to the workspace. So I have 3 different topics I want to mention to talk about today. So I think with the rise of flexible work following pandemic, we hear a lot of facilities managers trying to find ways to understand the new usage patterns in the workplace, how to make sure that when employees decide to come into the office, they have an appropriate place for them to be productive, for them to have a great experience. And as many say, now companies need to earn the commute of the employee. They have a choice of to work flexibly in multiple places. So one of the areas where technology is helping is to make sure that when employees come back to the office, they are able to reserve the kind of space that they need. They could be in the office for a meeting. They could be there for individual work. They could be there to meet up with customers. And we want to make sure that as they arrive in the space, they have a space already reserved, so they will not be disappointed when they find out that all the meeting rooms that they need are already taken. And one of the reasons why this is becoming a challenge is, I think, with this flexible work pattern, as many as 60% of the employees might be choosing to stay home. So on average, less than a half, maybe only 40% of the employees are going to be using the office space. And in addition to that, the challenge there is that depending on different industries, the pattern varies widely. Manufacturing sectors tend to have employees in office more of the time. And the knowledge workers may have more flexibility regarding work. And this can also change from department to department within an organization. And on top of that, usage pattern can also change depending on the day of the week that we're looking at. Mondays and Fridays tend to have fewer people, and the middle of the week tend to be where more people gather. But this is also not certain. This is also can change from time to time as well. So when you put all these together, managing the space really becomes a big challenge if we're doing this without technology. So we are asked to apply many of the technologies that we support to enable flexible booking of these workspaces, allowing workforces to have their spaces with the maximum flexibility. And on the back of these reservation data, we're also helping the facilities managers understand what occupancy really looks like in the face of hybrid work. Some organizations choose to install sensors in addition to these reservation systems, but really based on reservation systems already, there is a lot of patterns that can already be extracted and knowledge learned from the actual data. And also, as we mentioned earlier, the reservation system almost becomes a tool to guarantee the experience the employee will have in the office. If they want to pick the meeting room with the corner window, they have the freedom to choose that before they even arrive in the office. If they want to book a desk space closer to the pathway, it's easier to get to, they could also book that as well. And on top of all that, the data, again, for facilities managers, the data allows them to choose the kind of space that that the employees are really asking for. If all the meeting rooms tend to be booked on certain days of the week, they can reallocate the spaces so there are maybe fewer individual workstations but more meeting rooms for specific departments of the organization. So these are all different ways that we're seeing organizations using reservation systems to make sure that employees have the space they need as they come into the office. All right, Great. So next, let me move on to the second need that we're seeing using technology. And that is to use space utilization data and reservation data to help facilities managers optimize the use of resources. And this can come in multiple different flavor, different solving different needs. For example, we have organizations that are now adopting more of an activity-based workspace approach, and this this style of workspace arrangement has been talked about quite a lot even before the pandemic, but now it's become more essential because again, people are in the office to accommodate more specific things rather than just being there, just to be present for work. So we're asked to understand whether people are using more of the meeting rooms, or they're maybe mainly there to meet with customers, using more of the external meeting spaces, or they are more there to do focused work. And all these can be understood from based on reservation data. In connection to the reservations, people are also asking us to provide them information so they can optimize energy use. For example, when a meeting room is occupied, is scheduled, the air conditioning system can be connected to the reservation data, so it's turned on just moments before the actual reservation starts, the actual meeting starts. And electricity can be also turned off at the end of the meeting, so you will avoid having a projector continuously lit when nobody is in the meeting room anymore, when people have already left. Based on the actual usage, spaces can be reallocated. We can accommodate for more of the, for example, for ad hoc meetings, huddle spaces, for example. We can also use them to use the data to maybe decide to have more of the larger meeting rooms, because we tend to have larger groups that are coming mainly for team building activities. And on top of all that, the information really also helps facilities team make better decisions, and also back up their decisions with the actual usage data, and allow them to present the workspace usage in a more comprehensive way to upper management, to understand how the buildings are actually being needed. And we also need to note that even as of right now, a lot of things are still changing. We see this constant, almost a struggle between management and the employees on how much time they should be in the office. I think this is constantly changing as we speak. Any decision, and assuming that is going to be the pattern going forward. So really having all these systems in place so we can collect actual usage data, actual feedbacks from the employees is quite critical. And this will allow the facilities team to continuously provide up-to-date usage patterns and needs to make better management decisions. And lastly, I also want to touch on what this can all lead, in addition to just being a solution to the problems in hand, in addition to helping employees find the space that they need to work, and also helping facility managers having more information to make better decisions about the workplace. We're also seeing digital transformation of the workspace being a more forward-thinking planning process to help organizations really make the workplace their competitive advantage, and make it a meeting place where they can really allow the employees to be more productive and than working individually from home, and also get more out of the real estate value. So there are multiple technologies at use to really for three objectives. So for three competitive advantage that we're trying to build in the workplace. One is to really make the workplace more flexible in the face of future changes. We talk about resiliency in the face of the pandemic, and really going forward, it's more about being resilient. It's about more about being flexible. So work patterns are still in the change. They're not fixed yet. So whenever whatever that the employees decide is the best use of the workspace, the organization should have tools to support that. And really digitizing the utilization of the workspace, making the spaces reservable, give it the ability to change into different formats, gives organizations the ability to stay on the flexible side. And right now the office can be used for individual focused work. It could be used as meeting spaces, as showrooms, for example, to take customers into, and making the place digital makes for example, a digital lobby makes the workplace builds a brand image in front of the employees, in front of the customers, and really enhances the value of the workplace to be in addition to being a place where the employees work. And also, the workplace is a very valuable place for teams to build connection, as we often hear that out of the pandemic, we hear so many people wanting to go back to the office just to reconnect with each other. So there are technologies out there that, for example, help employees identify which of their peers are also scheduled to have meetings in the office. So they could have almost serendipitous meetings, unplanned, but really have encounters that help them build better connections among their peers. And this ties very much into an enhanced workplace experience. So in the work, as opposed to working alone from at home, when they are in the office, they have a better chance of getting to encounter the peers and having conversations and brainstorm sessions where ideas can be born, and new concepts and new plans being formulated. And the last advantage of objective that we try to achieve with a digital workplace is to really be able to optimize. And there are several things that we're looking to optimize. We're looking to optimize the space utilization, as we mentioned before, optimize for energy usage. And also, we're also optimizing for a streamlined end-to-end work experience from the point when the employees makes a schedule when they're still at home, and all the way to their arrival in the company as they come into the parking lot, helping them find a workspace with a minimal effort. And many are now thinking about scheduling the elevators, for example. So as the car pulls into the parking lot, a suitable elevator scheduled to count down, so it reduces their wait time at the elevator. And this can all the way be connected into the wayfinding system, so it makes it easy for them to find the space that they have already scheduled and booked at work. So these are some of the scenarios can seem futuristic. It may not be a essential part that you have to have at this moment, but I think by bringing in technology into the workplace, many of these scenarios can be enabled. And I have to say, digitizing the workplace is more than having the IoT devices. I think we also hear a lot of work-oriented software now, talking about integrating reservation data from your schedule, from your calendars, with conferencing systems. So you could also have a hybrid, streamlined hybrid meeting experience. So people in the office and people who are working from home can feel being included in the same conversation and being treated equally. So I think these are all the things that we hear enterprises are seeking. And given the technology that we have today, I think many of them can be realized or being planned. So in the very near future, they all can be achieved. So with that, I would like to bring a real to you, and this is a implementation of some of the IDEA technology in conjunction with the IBM Tririga software, and it implemented by Kiran and Felipe, the two co-speakers I introduced earlier in the session from CBRE and Newmark. I think they have a very exciting and story to tell, and I think they'll illustrate some of the points I mentioned before. So, yep, Felipe and Kiran, please.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Our story at FPL starts with, and I think it's a great story, starts with IBM Tririga 11.0 and 4.0. But originally, we started this effort back when we did an upgrade back in 2018 when FPL was on 10.4.2, 3.4.2. Back then, the presentation layer and everything worked really well, but with the upgrade of when we performed our upgrade in 2018, and we shifted from the 3.4.2 to the 3.6.1, 10.6.1, this allowed us to leverage some new technology. And what was really cool about Florida Power and Light is it was to actually how Tririga implemented UX. So as part of this upgrade that we did, what had happened was we would get users together, and as part of the normal process, you have regression testing. So it was kind of monotonous for me, just because I oversaw it, and there was really not much for me to do other than watch these guys. So while this gave me an opportunity to actually see what this new functionality looks like, which actually looks like. And it was really cool because I logged into Tririga again, and I started to play with some of the functionality. And what was really nice about this UX and their implementation was they had already had floor plans, they already had details, their space management was implemented. So a lot of the tools were already in place. And since Florida Power and Light was out of the box, it was a great opportunity to actually see some of these new features. And while I was playing with this, and this is kind of where the story starts, while I was playing with some of these features, the space manager was actually watching me, and I didn't know this at the time. Our task at the time was to implement, to do the upgrade and to implement strategic facility planning. So while I was in this testing mode and I was actually playing with some of the functionality, she came over and she moved over and she said, could you try this? So, and what it was I was actually playing with the new spaces assessment tool. It was a UX app that allowed users to do stuff, and you'll hear a bit more about this later. But she said, well, can it do this? So I went in there real quick, made a few adjustments settings, and I got that piece to work. And says, well, what about this? So I went in there and I made a couple of more changes, and all of a sudden it was working like she envisioned. And it was basically the beginning of this adventure. And I like this saying that I added here: the journey of 1,000 miles begin with this one step. And for Florida Power and Light, it was finding that new UX app in IBM Tririga 10.361 or application 361 1061. So she actually had a tool that she thought would work for them. So what we did was she asked if we could, we did some changes in a 2-week pause. I want to really implement this and see if it does what we needed to do. And this is where the story begins. And like I said, if you're out of the box and you have everything set up, adding new features is really easy. And that's what we were able to do. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so this is the background at Florida Power and Light for the space management team. As part of corporate real estate team, we maintain 10 properties, which consists of 5 million square footage of space. We have 10 facility managers that walk across all these spaces to make sure that we are maintaining the space. And in the coming slides, we'll show you how we are using the technology and assets to perform space assessments and some of the organizational moves and small moves, or it could be a large moves, and how we are facilitating the on-site catering orders. Yeah. You can go to the next slide.
Now, this is the UX that I was talking about. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see space assessments. But what it basically did is it gave users the ability to not be just on a desktop. It gave the users the ability to actually leverage different types of devices. This new feature that was part of this upgrade, and it started them down this track. So we were able to do space assessments. We're able to do move me, group moves. Try locate, so you can actually search for different things. But it wasn't using UX no longer is either platform or browser dependent. You now can leverage different types of devices to actually deal with some of this data. Next slide, please.
For reservation, for room reservation especially, as most of you know that primarily we use Outlook for room reservations. And since FPL, we use IBM Tririga for space management, we have integrated IBM Tririga with Office M365. So all the reservations that are done through Outlook are integrated with Tririga and shows on Tririga if a room is reserved. This also helps with the better user experience. Since we have implemented IDEA tablets, which you will see in the upcoming slide. You can move to the next slide. So yeah, you can see that the IDEA tablets placed at the conference rooms here show if a room is reserved or available. This also helps the user directly reserve the room from the conference room itself. So if they see the room as available, then they can reserve the room, and it's also integrated to the Outlook. And we also have the sensors that show the utilization of the rooms. So, and leveraging this reservations data along with the sensors data will help us to configure the rooms better. So one of the challenge that we had at FPL was the rooms availability. So a lot of the times when users try to reserve a room for this time, they don't find any rooms available. So the way we overcome this is leveraging the reservations and the census data. We came up with the utilization, and I found that the more number of people using the rooms are less during the time. So we have configured the larger conference room into more smaller rooms. So that way the room availabilities is more for the users. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. And with the workspace reservations, now employees can also reserve the individual spaces. So as John was mentioning in one of his slides, like the flexible spaces. So now the users will have an opportunity to reserve the space before they come into the office. They can find the space within the floor where they want to sit and reserve it, instead of like coming into the office and then finding a room. So this really helps our users to make the reservation for individual spaces. Yeah. You can go to the next slide.
And this was actually really interesting because this is what started this whole adventure space assessment. Before, what the users would have to do is they would have to print out their drawings. They would have to go out. They would have to do their markups, and then they would come back and they would enter the data, and they would approve the data, and they would move on. Now, what they're able to do. Next slide, please.
Yeah. This is the floor map page.
Yeah, you can see that.
Okay, so the next slide.
Good.
What happens here is that the users are actually able to now see real time because they're using tablets. They're also able to actually click on a particular space and actually see who is sitting in the space. What's nice is they can you can select it, you can update it, and you're connected to Trirega to the network. So that information is going live in Trirega. And then when the information is in Trirega, then it actually gets sent. The information actually gets sent to the space manager and approves that task, and now that person is actually officially sitting in that seat. So this kind of helps streamline the process a little bit for that. We started out with 9 managers, and now they have 10, what you would refer to as 10. Next slide.
Yeah, with this new UX functionalities for like group move and move me, employees can now request for their spaces to be updated if they move to a new location. So for example, when an employee changes a department or they want to move to a new place, now they can request the space themselves to be updated. And this goes through an approval process. So a space manager receives a request and they review if the person that requested the space to be updated is eligible to be able to move to that space, and they approve the request. With the large group moves, this also helps placing the request for the facility managers with the large moves. And also for the new hires, when they join the company, the sponsor will request for a space and make sure there's a space available before the new joinee comes into the office. You can go to the next slide. I can go over this. Maybe Philip is having some audio issues.
Yeah,
so,
please.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
yeah, Locate is an UX application where the employees can search for their spaces, or they can also find for someone. If they want to see where a person is sitting in the building, they can use the UX form and they can just search by their name or slate. And also for rooms, if they want to find a conference room within a building, they can search for the space name and you can see that it opens up a floor plan view and it shows where exactly the space is located. So using all these UX functionalities within IBM Trirega has helped us with the space management better. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, coming to the benefits, using these technology and these assets have not only improved the user experience better, but also to configure the conference rooms from converting it into a larger conference room to smaller rooms. And also for the space assessment, especially, we have eliminated the paper by reducing also the manual hours. Now the facility managers can see the floor plan view on the UX forms, and the data is also real time. So when they do the space assessments, if an employee is updated their space, they can directly see it on the assessment. This also shows us the improved accountability with the approval process of more requests.
All right. Before we move on, I think there is a good question regarding the type of end user data. So, yeah, so the question goes, you mentioned that end user data is collected to help inform FMs of their occupants' new post-pandemic habits. What kind of end user data is collected? Can you give us any examples?
So yes, sure. So for facility management team, right, to do the assessments, that's to make sure that the organization is using their space. So the end user data that is collected is how the spaces are occupied. So say if an organization has 100 spaces allocated, and we have the census data that is showing 80% of the seats are occupied. When they're requesting for 10 more seats, you know that you don't have 20 seats that are occupied, and this data will help a facility manager to prove that how many seats are really occupied. Do you need 20 more seats, or is it that you can convert those into flexible seats and make them reservable and have the people reserve those spaces and use it?
Yeah, I think nowadays organizations are constantly faced with the question of how much they need to downsize or how much space they want to keep. I think this data just is of a tremendous help in making that decision. Great. Okay.
Some of the new modules or functionalities that we are going to add soon are the indoor mapping. So since we are using the locate to find a people or space, with the indoor map, it also helps in wayfinding. So for if an employee goes to a new building, or even if a visitor visits the facility, they can now search using the locate functionality, and also see the wayfinding to that space. And we are also looking for the parking sensors. And some of the other functionalities would be the QR codes for the spaces, and also mail stops that we are going to add soon. Yeah.
Great. Well, I want to really thank Kiran and Felipe for helping us with the case study today. And I hope that in the last half an hour or so, you've seen that, how we turn a a set of customer requirements into an actual implementation using software that is available today to accommodate a range of needs, from helping the employees to make sure that they have the space that they need as they come into the office, and helping collecting data to allow the facilities managers to make better decisions about whether to keep the spaces they have or to downsize. I think that's a very pressing and honestly a $1 trillion question on many corporate real estate owners' mind. And to the last part, where we see that all these data can really be tied into ensuring a consistent, a smooth end-to-end experience for the employees from the moment they decide to go into the office, making a reservation, making sure that they have a place to park, and eventually providing them turn-by-turn guidance of when they arrive in the building to get to their seat, get to in their space, get there on time, and having the environment configured correctly with the right temperature, the right air conditioning, air quality, all adjusted to their preference. So I hope this is a useful case study to you, and we're definitely open to questions. If you want to ask any of the details, we have a couple of experts on the call. Any details on the implementation, or on potential future needs applying technology to space management, we'll be happy to answer that. Okay.
Great.
Yep.
Hi. If there's any closing remarks that you would like to have, John, I feel like you did a great job summing it up. Where people are going to work is the $1 trillion question.
That's
and we
right.
see so much of that. For those of you who are watching this, if you're not watching it live, please reach out to IFMA. We'd be glad to get you in contact with anybody that has been on this panel conversation, presenting this case study. Unfortunately, I know that Felipe had some technical issues. As John mentioned earlier on, he is on a cruise ship, and there's only so much I think that technology can do. We're glad that he was able to join us. There's wonderful insight being brought in. I'm going to pause here for a moment. Felipe, if you wanted to try to just add some closing remarks. Okay, then I'm going to guess that he's still maybe having some technology issues. Yes? Felipe, are you there?
Well, the only thing I was going to bring up, the only thing I was going to bring up was space management. I know I'm harping on that a little bit because that is one thing that led FPL to where they are today. One of the things that a lot of people have issues with is, and I've been dealing with workstation issues for 20 years now, 25 to be exact, is homesteading. And when you have space management and you're able to capture that data in real time, that helps with homesteading. That's my little 2 cents there.
I think that's important. There's so many, and I'm seeing some additional questions.
Yeah.
There's so much data out there. How do you utilize the data? How do you make it meaningful? And I feel that some of the information shared today will hopefully clarify that. John, I'm going to let you take those couple of questions that were just posted.
Right. So one of the questions is, are these data being used to trigger energy management? And is there any automation done so far on that based on occupancy? So we're definitely seeing a lot of automation connected to reservation data. I was just talking to a client on their needs to automatically, as I mentioned earlier, turn on air conditioning to make sure the temperature is right for meetings to begin, turn on lighting, turn on projector, and also make sure that the blinds are down in case there's a remote connection that's expected to come in on the projection screen. So all of that are quite mature technology that can be very easily tied into reservation data. I'm just wondering, Kiran, what do you see out in the market in terms of integration?
Yeah, sure. Also with the sensors, right, providing with the occupancy, they also provide the temperature and humidity status. So that helps the facility managers know, before if the AC is not running or if there is too much hot, they get a ticket uh, before the employee notices it and raises a ticket. So definitely these sensors will have that ability. So it's helping Florida Power and Light with those data.
Yeah, I think it's more on the preventive side,
Yes.
proactive maintenance. I also hear automatically scheduling cleaning after a number of people have used a space or used a
Right.
restroom. I think these are all very practical and already mature solutions out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if there's a heavier day, they could probably start getting some historical data, right? What day do people prefer to come in to
Right.
have their meetings? Then they can
Yes.
plan in advance for cleaning, for anything. Facility managers really do a great job for the health and safety of people within the buildings that are being used. One thing that Felipe mentioned is, yes, that based on the sensor data, you can manage the environmental
Mhm.
aspects of a building. And so there's great things that technology is bringing. Are there any other questions or comments from our esteemed panelists? No?
Well, I think it's it's a great session. I hope everyone has enjoyed it, and feel free to leave your comments on your social media so we could follow up afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to John, Karen, and Felipe for
Thank you,
all of the
Kim.
great insight that you brought. The case study, just seeing this, sometimes seeing what we hear and we're talking about, being put into practical applications with proof. The proof is in the pudding, as we might say in the U.S. I think that you guys did a great job sharing that. For those of you viewing, if you have not already done this, please do like this video. And any questions that you have, we're happy to help facilitate getting you in touch with these folks here at IFMA. Reach out to us at ifma@ifma.org. We're glad to help you. Everyone, enjoy your day. And thank you again for being with us.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.